What's up, music teachers? If you want to learn how to double your income by adding online group music lessons, this is the exact training that I wish I had when I was burnt out teaching 20 students a week as a full-time music ed student. So, if you don't know me, my name is Ben, part of social media music teacher. And the biggest problem that I hear with teachers transitioning from one-on-one to group is that they're always saying things like, I know group lessons work for music schools, but I don't know if it'll work for my particular situation. Or what if I ruin the good thing that I've already built and all of my students leave? That's something that me and Sam talked about in this training. And I always felt like the missing piece when I was growing my piano studio was an external thing. Like, what's the next best strategy or what's the next best tech? And yes, those are important, but what comes first is your alignment. So for the season of life that you're in right now, are you aligned with the way that you're teaching? Are you aligned with the students on your schedule, and are you aligned with the way that you're growing your music studio? So in this interview, I had the pleasure of talking to Sam, the CEO of Muzie.Live. If you don't know what Muzie is, it's like an online music lesson platform, kind of like Zoom, but it has a lot of features and a lot of benefits for not just the teachers, but the students as well, so that you get a seamless experience, not just for yourself teaching and have a platform for you to be able to teach well online, but also for your students to get results and learn online really seamlessly as well. So we not only discuss the strategies and the tech that you can use Musi with, so that you never have to stress about the technology challenges that may come in the way with making that transition, but we also talk about the mindset as well for doubling your income by either adding like online group music lessons, or if you want to create a course for yourself as well. So hope you enjoy the interview. I'll see you soon.
The big things that always come up are how can I literally teach less but make more money? and so that's why groups and the asynchronous stuff has been a big focus recently.
Mhm.
And then with Tonara shutting down recently,
Yeah, I heard
we
about that.
ton on the practice side. We already had a bunch of practice features, but now we're like doubling down on all the practice stuff.
Yeah,
So that way that the students are being taken care of just as much as the teachers are. That's a big
100%.
thing for us, is that it should be two-sided. Most of the products on the market are for teachers, and like a lot of our competitors are like high quality Zoom knockoffs,
Hmm.
and it's just video conferencing at a high fidelity thing, where we have that, but we're thinking more about if it helps you teach or it helps your students learn, then what does that look like, and
Hmm.
how do you actually implement that technologically?
Gotcha. You have anything like you got a story about how you're really proud, like something, anything you're proud of about
I
music?
mean, I'd say the AI honestly is the thing that right now I'm the most jazzed about,
Uh-huh.
because that was one of those things where we were the very first music education company in the world to implement an actual AI. So there's been a lot of companies that have an AI and it's just a chatbot or something, and it's not really an AI. It's just a couple algorithms in the background and pre-recorded responses. Where the Musi AI is actually an AI, and it is listening to the lesson if you want it to, and it's writing notes for you, and it has the ability to basically understand that it's a music teacher's personal assistant. So when you're teaching a lesson, or like you're conducting any kind of meeting, when you're done, your meeting notes are just written for you. And with Musi, it kind of goes a step further, and it writes the meeting notes, but also converts those meeting notes into like a tangible assignment,
Yeah.
so that the student will have specific instructions based on everything you talked about in that lesson.
Yeah.
We're all about efficiency, so if I can save you time, then I'd love a world where a 30-minute lesson was 30 minutes of lesson, and
Yes.
not 5 minutes of prep work, 20 minutes of lesson, 5 minutes of wrap up, and 5 minutes of emailing stuff, and then you're late for your next lesson. That's very common.
Hmm.
So we're trying to just streamline that process, and honestly the AI has the most potential going forward. There's just limitless ideas of what we can do with that.
I love it. I love what you're saying about how like AI is not something to be scared of, but
Yeah.
it's obviously something that helps us do what we already do well. Like
Yeah,
that's super
exactly.
important.
Yeah, the way I think of it is technology should be there to support you, not hinder. So
Hmm.
if at any point you're using a piece of technology and you're spending more time troubleshooting it than you are using it, then there's a problem. There's something
Yeah.
wrong with the tech. So it should be there to enhance your capabilities, not distract you.
100%. So like in terms of like the problem that I see with most teachers who want to be able to teach less and make more,
Yeah.
like just in your experience, what have you heard is like the most like the biggest problem that teachers are going through when they are making that transition?
Yeah, the big one we see is the I've never done it before, so I don't even know where to begin. Is
Mhm.
that sort of like they're afraid of ruining the good thing they've already built? Because if you think about a lot of teachers, they've been teaching, years and will have a good, nice full roster, 40, 50 students, and they'll have this reputation from the community that they're very good at what they do and that people value private lessons. That's why you sort of pay the premium for, meeting one-on-one. And we try to sort of explain to the teachers that a group lesson is no less. It's not a lower quality. It's not going to take away. If anything, I argue that there's actually a ton of opportunity for
Mhm.
peer-to-peer learning, for group interaction that you wouldn't normally get, which I would say is actually probably more valuable than just a one-on-one lesson. Uh,
100%.
and then you have literally time saving. Like if you do the simple math, like say you charge $50 for an hour long lesson, you make $50 an hour. That's it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I can do the math quickly to tell you exactly how much money you will make this year. And you will not make any more money unless you decide to work more.
Or yeah.
And that's sort of, the problem with any service-based job. So when we see teachers coming in, they're usually afraid to take that first step because they're like, well, what if I put people in a group and they hate it? And then all of a sudden I lose my students. It's like, don't worry, that's not going to happen. It's like, unless you really screw it up. But I talk a lot about trying to explain to people that there's subtle ways to implement like a group into your program without just going full bore right away. Like the
Mm.
one I always talk about is the practice session. And this, I think more teachers should just leverage this for their own personal enjoyment. Is you spend 1 hour either a week or month, bi-weekly, whatever you feel comfortable with an open, basically an open room. And the idea is that you, as the teacher, are practicing something of your own. You should have your sheet music or your song up, and you should be working through something. Well, when a student comes in, you'll have a couple people come into this practice session. You don't necessarily need to start teaching them as a group, but just vocalize what it is you're doing. Vocalize what you're thinking about. Vocalize how you're like repeating working on a song backwards, starting at the end and kind of moving through it that way so that you don't just master the first 4 bars and never actually finish the song. So
Yeah.
there's tons and tons of techniques that you can talk about. The teachers know, it's not something you need to go and prep. You don't need to go and write out a syllabus or anything. You literally just open the room. You could do it on Zoom. You could do it on Muzie. You just have an open invitation to your community. And at first, I wouldn't even charge for it because that way you don't feel like you're asking for something that you're not confident yet. And you just do that for a month or two of just having these weekly hour-long sessions. And what you'll notice is the same people will probably be showing up to these group calls each week. And then you've got your first group. If that's two
There we
people,
go.
four
Yeah.
people, that's your first group. And so then you can subtly pitch to them, hey, would you guys like to make this sort of a standing thing? Should we, let's have a group lesson now once a month, and that will just be a part of the package that I offer. And then eventually you can increase the prices on your services to incorporate that. And so I've seen teachers do things where they have like normal one-on-one lessons, one a week, but you for $10 more, you get an extra hour of practice time. For $20 more, you get 3 extra hours of practice time, or whatever, however you want to sort of format it. So
Mhm.
people can go in and be like, oh, well, I'll do my normal lessons and I'll take that extra hour of practice time. They may or may not show up every time. And that's really not the problem, is that you're now creating an increased revenue stream for yourself. And as you get more and more comfortable with that, you can then feel like, okay, now I'm used to having a group. And now I know what 4 people in a room feels like. So
100%.
I now offer group lessons. And, these are another part of the package that you can. And I don't recommend changing your prices. Like, I don't think people should take their groups and like divide the price in in half or something. Like
Mhm.
maybe a slight discount if you really want to, but I personally would just leave it at the same rate, or if anything, increase the rate.
Yeah, it's just more value for them at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, and it becomes easy to sort of show that value because now you're a little bit more comfortable with actually
Yes.
paying them. And
That's yeah,
yeah,
that I feel like that is really important because I always ask or I get questions from teachers who are like, okay, what's the next milestone? Like, how do I know when I'm ready to charge this? It always just falls back on you as the teacher.
yeah,
How comfortable do you feel?
yep.
Right? Like I like the doing all these things for free is not just adding value, but it's also helping you get used to this new system of
Yes,
teaching as well.
absolutely. And it's basically the way I look at it is how confident are you in your lesson prices for a one-on-one?
Yep.
How can you, if you can tell me straight face that you're $100 an hour and that's not a gimmick, that you believe that you are worth that money, then I see a very logical jump to saying, okay, well, in this group setting, I'm worth $300 an hour because now it's actually a much more of a workload, in the sense that like you've got to deal with three, four, five people, and the possible income that you can make is impressive. Like we've seen teachers. My sort of anecdote story for groups and is in 2020, early pandemic, we had a teacher in England come onto the platform, and basically they were doing the drive to every lesson. So they were
Oh,
driving to,
traveling, yeah.
yeah. So, wear and tear on the car, wear and tear on yourself, lots of extra travel time where you're not really teaching. And then you're in other people's houses all the time, which is just kind of weird to me. But, so the way we basically said to them was, why don't you convert everybody into 3 people groups? And that, so, they sat around, they thought about it for a bit. They were working 6 days a week, and they were only teaching 35 to 40 lessons, but the amount of driving time was taking up all of the sort of in between. They converted everybody to 3 or 4 person groups. They teach 3 days a week now. They didn't,
Nice.
they chose not to increase their roster size, but they decided to take back those 3 extra days of free time, and they have other hobbies, and they're happy to go and do other things
Yeah.
and just teach. And to them, they don't even feel like they're teaching less, because they're not really. They're still teaching just as much. Like they're still engaging with the students every single week, but
Mhm.
now you're not burnt out by Sunday morning, and you
Yes.
don't have that like, oh god, I only have 24 hours before I got to get right back on this again. And that burnout is real. I mean, teachers burn
Can I
themselves out all the
yeah,
time.
could I ask you about that belief? Because that's a huge part about what I do here, is about making sure that teachers still have that time
Yeah,
to perform and be a
yeah,
musician. That's why, like, you're getting back into your
yeah.
own band as well. Like, what is your thoughts on that problem that teachers have?
Yeah, I mean, I was guilty of it for a long time. And part of it is I've been working on Muzie as well, so that
Yeah.
really sucks away 90% of my time. But even before this, when I was just teaching regularly, I wasn't really practicing. I wasn't really playing anything for me. I was
Mhm.
learning tons of songs to teach to students, and I was spending all my time practicing their stuff, basically. And it took me a long time to be like, well, I mean, shouldn't I still be the one progressing as well? I actually even signed up for piano lessons myself, just to like give myself
Nice.
sort of the student point of view again, so that I could feel like a beginner. And I think it's vital that you keep the sort of essence of why you're doing this. There's very few people I've ever met that picked up the instrument with the intent to be a teacher. Now,
Yeah.
that's not saying that we haven't created millions of amazing teachers, which there are. But I think if you asked most teachers, was this your one and done? Like when you first picked the guitar, be like, oh, I can't wait to be a guitar teacher. No. The reality is that we all thought the same thing. I want to be a rock star. I want to be famous.
Yes.
I want to play in a band. I want to go on tour. I want to make music. That's why you're picking up the instrument. Now, of course, reality is what it is.
Mhm.
We've all gone through that of, okay, that didn't quite work, so I'm going to do this. But I feel too many teachers take the the teaching side of things and then just ignore
Yeah.
they like put up blinders so they don't feel bad or something. It's like, no, I know tons of teachers who are, I mean, I know teachers that play in the Philharmonic orchestras all over the country and they still teach. And it's like, that's pretty amazing. Like I have friends who play in touring bands and still teach. It's like there's absolutely time for you to do all of it. Only
Yeah,
if you structure it correctly though. Because
exactly.
if you are doing one-on-one lessons 6 days a week, then there isn't any time. And
Hmm.
you are just going to be burnt out. And that's why, like I was saying earlier, with like even the asynchronous kind of stuff, where like on Muzi or really any, there's tons of platforms that do this, but on our world, we basically show teachers that you can have your roster of students, but then you can create like this membership so that there's other people out there who might be learning from you, but not
Yeah.
actually taking daily or weekly lessons. They're just learning from your pre-recorded content, from your videos, from your PDFs, from any of the things or materials that you're using anyway in your normal teaching. You can basically format that into something that you can sell as sort of a package sort of deal. And we've got
Yeah.
teachers who literally have 300 students and like one person, and they'll have 300 students where 200 of those students, or even 250 of those students, have never met them before. They've just found their course, they've signed up, they're on the platform, they're getting their, they're getting feedback from like a chat sort of system instead of from a video system. And then that person is also has a much higher premium, 150 $200 an hour of actual one-on-one or small group lessons. And I mean, some of these teachers are making $500-600 an hour in these group settings. It's
Yeah.
like that's lawyer money, like that's like, when people are like, oh, can you be a six-figure? It's like, yeah, we have a school that does the heavy seven figures. It's like, and that's not terribly uncommon. Um,
Yeah.
but you've got to sort of have the framework and mindset. I think it's more about the mindset, really.
I
The technical side comes, with reaching out to people like you and me and others in the community who have sort of done this before and have been helping others. That there is not a formula, but there's definitely a system that, and
yeah.
just sort of engaging in that is half the battle. Is just trying to find the person to talk to.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned the mindset part too, because like we both know, in the entrepreneur world, it's like there's things that are always going to work. There's proven things that are always going to help you grow your studio. Um, but I do agree that the mindset part is the biggest thing that stops teachers from making that transition, because
Yeah,
it's very natural. It's just that fear of the unknown and having
absolutely.
uncertainty on what the future actually looks like ahead for their studio.
Yeah,
So when you're talking to teachers and they're having that mindset block, like they have all the tools available, Muzi is right here that can help, but like that mindset part is the block. Like, what do you often like say to them? Like, what do you say to help them with that mindset and finding the confidence and being able to transition?
yeah. So sort of like I was mentioning earlier, like if you have the confidence to charge somebody for your services at all, then you're already on a good path.
Hmm.
So, and then you're right. There's this like extra step that people are afraid to take because they've got this good thing going and they're not sure. Like you said, that if they change something, is that going to ruin what they've got going? Oftentimes, no is the answer. So I'm very much a try something. My mom always says to me, "Do something and something will happen."
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's if you do nothing, nothing will happen. So if you're waiting around for the right moment to sort of take the plunge, it will never occur. And I think you and I get this on sort of the entrepreneurial side of things is like when you're running a business, there's definitely days where it's all bad, but the highs are high and the lows are low. And
Hmm.
honestly, that's sort of the fun of it to me is like I kind of like that unknown quality of it. But if people are looking for that stability, it's just a bit of repetition. And teachers are easy to talk to about this because it's practice. It's
Yeah.
simply, you know,
Did you have any moments where you had to make a big decision like that and then felt really hesitant about it?
oh yeah. So
Like,
yeah, this is pretty big. So when we were building out Muzi, when in 2019, we were building out this platform, and it was
uh-huh.
actually going to be a tutoring service. The idea was that
Oh,
we were going to have say 500 teachers on the platform at any given moment. And if you wanted a music lesson or you wanted some tutoring help in music or you wanted to phone a friend, basically, you could go to Muzi, create an account, and then it would link you with a teacher live right then and there. There was
oh,
no like scheduling out into the future or waiting 3 days or getting on their calendar. It was boom, you're in the call and it's time to like go. and the student was actually paying by the minute. So we had a very student-centric model where the idea is they were charged 75 cents a minute. They could do as many or as few minutes. If they wanted 3 minutes of help, they could just get their quick question answered and then end the call, and it would just cost them $2 or $3. And from the teaching point of view, there's this nice sort of Uber style life where you could be teaching your regular roster, and if you had any gaps, you could just turn on Muzie and you could get lesson requests in
Interesting.
time.
Uh-huh.
And so for about a year and a bit, we built that product.
Oh,
And
interesting.
we went out and I
What year was
found
that?
this is 2019.
2019.
So this
Okay.
is right before everything changes. So
Uh-huh.
we build out this entire tutoring product. I go and find 200 teachers to become the first, batch of teachers on the platform. I had to interview every single one of them personally and like vet them and background checks and all that fun stuff.
Uh-huh.
And we rolled the product January 10th, 2020. It lasted about a week because
Wow.
we had it was great for about a week. People were checking it out, they were signing up, doing some lessons, but then basically everyone got the same email or the same phone call that was, we're shutting down, everything's going into lockdown, no more in-person lessons, no more
Yeah.
this, no more that. And so every single one of those 200 teachers basically turned around and said, well, this is cool, but now I need a place for my students, not a
Mm-hmm.
place to acquire new students. And so I had to basically tell my team that I had just spent a year and a half convincing that this was the future product, that this was the right idea, that, I'd put everything into it. Literally within
Yeah.
a week, I had to tell them that we were scrapping the entire thing and that we were going to retrofit this so that you would bring your students instead of meeting new students. We got rid of the payment thing. We got and we had to
Yeah.
basically,
How'd you feel?
oh
Like,
God, it was rough. It was one of those where it was a gamble. It was a huge
uh-huh.
risk because we had spent so much time, so much research, vetting and testing and making sure the product and the format was going to be great.
Yeah.
And then literally the week after it launched, we were like, oh no. Like, good. Luckily, we had 3/4 of the thing we needed. We
Uh-huh.
just sort of changed some stuff around. But that conversation, my development team isn't they're not as connected to the music teaching world as I
Mm-hmm.
am. So for them, they were like, hold on. They're like, you just told us that tutoring and this was the future model. And I was like, I still believe that, but times have changed. The pandemic is here. We need to pivot. And if
Yeah.
we hadn't pivoted, we would not be here right now.
Yeah, of course. What was the
There,
pivoting like? What did you like? What kept you going, kept moving forward with the plan?
Yeah, well, the demand really
Man,
was sort of
okay.
the thing that kind of kept us going. This is the right idea because
Mm-hmm.
we had those couple hundred teachers on the platform, and basically every single one was asking for the same thing. And like I said at the beginning, we're very much a uh, ask and receive kind of company. So
Yeah.
when we ask the audience and every single one says that they need that, then that's definitely the next thing we're building. And
Yeah.
that's a very rare situation to be in with such a definitive, clear, like this is what has to happen. But it was
Mm-hmm.
also became basically a drag race because it was like, we need to make this change now. We need to
Mm-hmm.
change all of our marketing material. We need to change everything that we've been. It used to be like on-demand lessons was our like thing, and now we've got to scrap that. And now we're a virtual studio. Fortunately, Muzie was the third product we had built as a company,
Nice.
so it wasn't our first sort of go around on building education software. And ironically, Muzie is a lot more like the very first product we ever built now than it is
Nice.
even sort of like the Muzie it was intended to be. So I mean, it was terrifying to be honest, though, because everything was riding on that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And we made the pivot. I basically just put my foot down and said this has to happen. And everyone was like, "You better be right," because because
I mean,
that's
for
it.
you then, what was your why behind it all? Like what really drove you to keep moving forward even though the decision was scary?
Oh yeah, I think for us, I guess with my sort of track record is I've failed a bunch. Like
Uh-huh.
I've failed my first product, failed miserably. Second product never even got properly released, failed.
Mm-hmm.
Third product lasted a weekend, had to scrap it and build a new thing. So by that point, I was sort of in the mindset that if you don't stop, that something is around that corner.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was going to be that. If I had no idea really if this pivot was going to work,
Uh-huh.
because at the same time competitors started popping up, everybody was moving over to Zoom. So we basically accidentally went toe to toe with Zoom, literally the most successful company of that entire year, 2 years.
Yeah.
So they had something like $86 billion in revenue or something like that. And then there's just me and my dad over here in the corner.
Yes, sir.
So like that was terrifying. And if I had written a business plan that said we were going to go and compete with Zoom, every person on the planet would be like, that is a very dumb idea. But because we did something specific and something niche, and we really laid into our sort of bubble, like we very careful, like I said earlier, if it helps you teach or it helps you learn, then that's Muzi's sort of thing. So we try very hard to keep that bubble tight so that we're not just adding frivolous items here and there. And I think that sort of cohesiveness has sort of proven to work, but at the time it was still a guess.
Yeah.
But because I had failed so many times, I was sort of looking at it like, what's the worst that can happen? We fail again. Like, and you just come up with another idea. I'm very much the entrepreneur in that sense of like, I just won't stop
Yeah.
until
I I love that. I love that. Appreciate you for sharing that. I feel like that's going to be very inspiring for a lot of teachers.
Yeah, I feel the
Yes.
same for teachers. I
Yeah.
think a lot of teachers who they have all these ideas, and I just try to tell them is like, just pick something and jump at it. Because like I said, something will happen. It might not be what you planned on. You might try to set up this group thing and you end up doing like workshops or masterminds or webinars, or you create a podcast or something else kind of comes from it. I don't see, it's not bad. It just might not have been the thing you thought you were going to do, but that's half the fun of the ride.
Exactly. I think it's important to just keep moving forward, but also like what you were doing, just staying detached from the outcome as
Yeah.
well, and not really. I feel like that's the way that I've really ran my business, but also my music as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's like really focusing on the process, but also just staying detached from the outcome, not expecting anything in return.
Yeah. I love that phrase, actually. That's
Yeah.
a detached from the outcome is
Have you
great.
read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin?
No. Oh, that'd be great, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good book, and I tell all my clients to read it in one of my trainings as well. And
Yeah.
I really like it because it's I felt like that book has shaped me into myself as a producer, but
Right.
all of the things that he talks about is directly correlated to how I personally want to treat business
Right.
as well. So it finally clicked because I was like, oh, this way of being a musician, who I am already, that's who I can be in my business and for teachers in their studios as well. I think that's it's an amazing mindset to have right there.
Exactly. And I love that idea of being detached from the outcome, because it's like if you're going to go and write a song
Mhm.
and your plan is to write a top 10 or a hit or whatever, it won't happen. Like it just,
Yeah.
like it's every, go ask every top 10 artist in the world, were they planning on writing a top 10? No,
Yeah,
they were
no.
just writing a song that they were enjoying the process of writing.
Mhm.
There's like factory farming, in the music world that can produce a top 10 every time. But in the real scheme of things, those new upcoming bands, they're not going out there with the I'm gonna win a Grammy. Like
Mhm.
if that really is your mindset, then I'm very sorry, because you're in for a lot of disappointment. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I love that idea of like it's so cliche, but it really is the journey, not the destination. Because
100%.
there isn't a destination. Like there isn't an end to it.
Mhm.
Like people always ask me like, "Oh, what's the plan with Muzie?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, do
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna like someone might want to buy it, okay, but that's not the end. Like if someone bought the company or something, that wouldn't be like, all right, done with that thing. It's
Mhm.
like that now just means there's a bigger company funding everything, and now there's more and more, and the workload quadruples, and there's no like, I don't see an end ever to any of this
Yeah.
stuff. If Muzi fails one day, then it's not Muzi that was going to be my thing, and I'm just going to pick the next idea in the hat, and I'm just
Yep.
going to keep running after it. Because otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do with myself. You
Yeah.
know.
And I think a lot of all these things aren't new to everyone
Yeah,
that's watching this. It's like everything that you've done with your music career.
yeah,
Now
yeah.
you're just applying that into your studio now. So
100%. Yeah, that's why I try to explain to people that like you are the entrepreneur that I am.
yeah,
Like I have a software company, but my entrepreneurial skills apply to my teaching business. Like
100%.
I teach my students in the same way that I conduct demos or do coaching calls or run product ideas by the team. Like it's very much a universal skill set.
Yeah.
And I'd argue musicians are kind of lucky because you've already got one thing down, which is the ability to focus on something for a very long time. You can't get good at any instrument without that sort of innate skill of sitting down, focusing on the thing, practicing a lot, understanding that practice takes time and repetition. Like that is, the secret formula. It is simply do it a lot. Like so business is no different. Like we were saying with the groups, like if you're not sure about groups, set up a group with two of your favorite students who are like the most low key, easy people that you just know are not going to judge you, that will let you fumble. Go and set them up in a group and do that a dozen times until you're comfortable. Is
Yeah.
I think a lot of teachers are, and I'm guilty of this, is thinking that because we've been in the business a long time or because we've been doing this thing for a long time, that the next thing should be easier. And it will, in a way, be easier, but you still have to make that initial push, which is
Yep.
the hard part. Like that initial push doesn't change on anything, no matter what
Yeah.
you're doing. That first step is always going to be the thing that puts you in the most uncomfortable sort of situation. But
Yeah. I
you
think
know,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say with teachers, you think about how often you meet a new student. Every single time you get a new student, that's a brand new experience that you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know if this person's going to go love you or they're going to hate you or if it's going to go well or not. But you're now have probably taught for so long that you're very comfortable with meeting new students. That's not, you don't think of it as this big change. You
Mhm.
just think, oh, I'm meeting a new student. I'm going to do my thing. And because you practiced it hundreds and hundreds of times, when you finally get that new student, you're like, oh, I can do this. And you go in and you kill it. And so the same thing applies in any aspect of the business that you want to expand into, is practice it before you sort of sell it. You know,
Yes.
you know, don't feel bad about asking your current clients or your current user base to help you. They want to help you. They're not there to watch you fail. They're there to watch you succeed. If I have a problem on Muzie, I go to my teachers and I say, hey guys, I can't figure this out. Anyone got a better idea? And then I'll get a dozen inquiries. They're like, oh, what about this? What about that? Have you thought of this? And never once have they gone, oh, I hope this new feature doesn't work. Like never. They all are excited to see the new thing. And
Yep.
they're excited at any point that the business does well because they feel like they're on Team Muzie.
Yes.
They're on our team. Your students are the same thing. Your students are on your team. They want you to succeed. So if you're offering some brand new package and it's got all these cool bells and whistles, they'll be excited for
They
you.
want
They'll
to do
want to
that.
support you,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just have that sort of timid, like, oh no, I might anger my audience or piss people off, or they might leave me, or they might think I'm disingenuous or any of that stuff. If they do, then they were never on your team anyway. So that's not the client you really wanted. And
Mhm.
then you'll realize that 99% of your users are there as your basically cheering squad, you know?
There we go. Yeah. Dude, I love everything we talked about for today. I feel like I could talk about it all day, but I want to make sure I can respect your time.
No, yeah.
Would love to finish off. Like, of course, where can people find more about you,
Yeah.
Yuzi, work you do?
Yeah, Musie's the sort of where I'm at all the time. So if everyone wants to come and find it, it's Muzie.Live, Muzie.Live. That's the website. We've got coaching programs, which I do personally. That's more on the like how to literally do technical things. It's much more on like the technical side of teaching, physical setup and stuff like that. And then like I said today, we talk about like how to set yourself up for asynchronous lessons, for group lessons. And then the product itself, Muzie, I kind of describe it as like Google Classroom for music teachers. Is basically is the video conferencing stuff, but it works for hybrid lessons, it works for online lessons, it works for any sort of teaching that you want to do. And that's just, that's just Muzie.Live. And if you ever go on there and see Sam on the chat support, it really is me. So the bots on there, the AI is everywhere else,
Yeah,
but the chat support's still me. Or
sweet. Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks so much, Sam. Like
absolutely.
I know I've seen you around for the past few years, so it's awesome finally getting the chat. But I appreciate you for coming out today.
Definitely.
For anyone that's listening, yeah, feel free. If you got a question, feel free to drop it down below. But especially if you're looking to create a six-figure studio, but like we both talked about, doing so in a way where you still have a secure income without sacrificing your musician life as well. Definitely talk to me. Definitely talk to Sam as well. Like we can, either of us can help you out as well. I'll put all the links. Like I'll ask you for some links. I'll put them down below for everyone as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.